everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. Today I want to walk you through how I prep for a large costume event, like a costumed getaway. In this case, I'm going to be prepping for the Port Townsend Victorian Festival that happens every year at the end of April in Port Townsend, Washington. And it is a 2 and a bit day event that they have lectures, they have fashion show, they have a dance, they have teas, tours, etc. And it all happens in this beautiful seaside town on the northern part of the peninsula in Washington state. So I am going to be going there next weekend. Today it is Saturday. I will be leaving on this coming Friday and I have to get everything prepped for this event. Now I have already made or almost finished making all of the outfits that I'll be wearing to this event, but I'm also going to be wearing a lot of things that I have already made and worn in past years because it's okay to rewear costumes, I promise. In fact, it's good. You should be re-wearing your costumes. It's a good thing. And you can also remake costumes that you have worn in the past into something new. So I'm going to be doing all of that this weekend. If you want to see the remaking video, I will link that down in the description because that was a couple of videos ago. But the very first thing that I have to do is petticoat prep. Now, you don't necessarily have to do this for every single event that you go to, particularly if you go to a lot of events that are maybe closer together. But what I mean by petticoat prep is starching your petticoats. Now, I have done an entire video on starching petticoats before, so I will link that down below in the description. I'm not going to go into complete detail on all of that, but basically my goal today is to starch at least 4, if not 5 petticoats. I don't know that I'm going to have enough starch for all 5, and I also don't think they can all fit like in my laundry areas, you know, whether that's like all in the same load or even just, I don't think I have room to hang them all if I do all 5. But I'm wearing 1830s to this festival, and 1830s requires starched petticoats. In fact, 1830s, 1840s, 1850s, and probably 1860s, but at least you have the help of a crinoline there. They all require starched petticoats because the 30s through the 50s have large skirts and no other skirt supports besides petticoats. So I have kind of a basic petticoat that looks very plain and limp right now. I have a corded petticoat that also looks really limp right now. And I have a ruffled petticoat that is like super heavy because it's so unstarched right now. Those all 100% absolutely have to get starched. I am also wearing an early 1870s dress. It is an early bustle dress that's worn over a crinolette. And right now my petticoat, which is made out of cotton organdy, but it just looks really, really sad. Like, what the heck? So this definitely needs starching, 100%. I'm almost wondering if I've worn a second petticoat with it in the past because this looks so sad, but I will have to look at like old getting dressed videos to figure that out actually. And then the one that I will do if I have room is my 1890s petticoat. This is the dress that I'm making right now that I'm almost finished with. And this petticoat is actually made out of Pimatex cotton, which has a lot of body just in the making of the cotton. So this one honestly probably doesn't need to be starched, also because 1890s skirts have a lot of their own support. So I can probably forego starching this, which is good because that is definitely not going to fit in my washer with all of this other stuff. Now, of course, we don't starch in the washer, but the first step to starching is that you want to make sure that your petticoats are clean. So I'm going to run these through a load in the washing machine, and while I go out and I pick up my starch, I had ordered 2 bottles of the liquid starch. I have used the just cornstarch in the past, and I've found it to be kind of annoying. And I think I used the liquid starch once before, and I feel like I remember it working better. So I'm going to do the liquid starch method this time, which basically is taking liquid starch that you can get, I think it's like Stay Flow brand, and taking that and mixing it with hot water and soaking or dunking at least all of your petticoats in there, and then wringing them out, hanging them up to dry, and then you have to press forever. So I'm gonna go do all of that, and that is step 1 in the prep for a costume event. So I've got them all starched. This is the corded petticoat. As you can tell, it is hanging up drying. And then over there, you can see the ruffled petticoat. This one I put a bin underneath and a fan to try to catch the drips because this is just so hard to wring out and it is still so wet. I'll probably wring it out again. I hung these up about an hour ago, I would say. There's 2 more outside, so I'll show you those. But of course, it's meant to start raining soon. Oh no, we have a casualty. Petticoat on the ground. Oh dear. Well, hopefully it's not too dirty. The good thing is that it's actually already drying quite a bit from hanging outside in the backyard. So as you can see, the petticoats are starched and are ready to be pressed. I always find it so amusing when they can all stand up on their own. And the nice thing is that it turns out I don't actually have to press this one. I didn't need to starch this one. This was for the blue bustle dress, and I'm not wearing that because I remembered that I wore it to the last Victorian Festival. So I need to press this, and this, and all you have to do is like spritz it a little bit, mist it with some water, press it with an iron, and they will be all set. And the petticoats are pressed. These two really don't require too much work when pressing. This one, it's more to get the shape of the cording back because it gets really kind of warped as it's getting starched and wet and everything. And honestly, this one, I just pressed where there were obvious wrinkles because otherwise it just really didn't need much. This is actually made out of an old bed skirt. So I think it's possible that there might be some poly in it. It really doesn't wrinkle very much, but it does do a nice job when it's starched. But the big job was this one right here where I had to go around and press every ruffled layer. And this is just like such a huge difference when this petticoat is starched versus when it's not, both in the body and also in the weight. It honestly feels lighter when it is starched than when it is not because it's so droopy. So yeah, this is going to be really great under all my 1830s stuff, and the petticoat starching part of this pre-event lead up is done. One of the other important things that you have to do when prepping for an event is make sure everything is in good repair. So this is my like 1870s through 1890s corset, and we have a bone that is poking out of this channel. Now this I boned with twill tape. I do not recommend. That is what a lot of things tell you to use. It's not good to use this for boning channels because it's really easy for the boning to tear through. As you can see, I have already patched this in multiple places, I think, in the past. Yes, here we go. There's more patches there and more over here. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take some just pre-made bias tape. That's what these are. And I'm going to put it over that channel. And I think this one's about to rip through too, so might as well patch that one while we're there. And that way this corset will last me for a lot longer. I realized that this corset is also in need of some repair, so I'm going to be doing the same bias tape little patch method on these 2 spots as I'm doing on the other corset. One other repair that I'm doing to prepare for everything is, and I kind of already started this one without showing you the before, but this is an inside out chemise right now, and this is the chemise that I wear for a lot of my Victorian stuff. I believe I'm going to be wearing this on Sunday of the Victorian Festival, and the thing is that it's always bothered my armpits. It's just like I made the arm size too small and it's jammed up into my armpits and it's been very uncomfortable, and so I'm finally taking this time to fix that. So what I've done, this just had bias tape binding around the armscye, and what I've done here is I've removed the bias tape from the bottom of the armscye. Sorry, I know this is very washed out, and I've already opened up the bottom right here, and this is just the seam in the armpit, and I've tried it on and this is better. So I'm going to actually remove a little bit more bias tape and cut that fabric away and kind of close off the seam by doing a back stitch over there on the machine, and then redo my bias tape over there just so that this chemise becomes a lot more comfortable. So now that the necessary repairs have been made, I want to talk to you about packing, because packing for a costumed event is very important. You do not want to forget anything. Now, I'm one of those old-fashioned people who tends to prefer an actual written packing list. So I've just gone and I was going through last night, writing out everything that I could think of that I would need. And what I like to do is I like to go through each outfit that I'm going to be taking, and I will go through like the Friday, if I have time for day wear, this is what I'm going to wear. And then Friday for the ball, and then Saturday for the fashion show, and then Saturday for that dance, and then Sunday, and then all the random other like modern stuff that I need. And I like to go and I like to write out every single component of a costume. So we're talking skin out. Don't forget to put on, you know, your bloomers, your chemise, your corset, your stockings, your shoes, your petticoat layers, your corset cover layers, and then like the dress or bodice and skirt itself, and then any outer things like, are you needing a pelerine? How about a bonnet? Hat pins for your hat or bonnet. Don't forget those. Hair pieces or wigs if you're going to be wearing wigs. Just write out every single component. Jewelry even, especially for the balls. There's a lot of jewelry going on here. And I like to write it all out right here so that I can cross it off as it goes into my suitcase. Now, that said, I don't 100% know that I'm really going to be packing a ton of stuff in suitcases for this event. This is an event that I drive to. It is not something that I have to fly to, which is really nice. I did do an entire video, I believe, on packing for costume college a couple of years ago. So I will link that video down below because that is specifically like how to pack when you are going to fly to a costumed event. And it focuses entirely on the packing as opposed to this sort of prep video that I'm doing here. So for a driving event, you have a little bit more flexibility. For example, you can press things at home and put them in garment bags and take them with you. This is complicated a little bit with this trip in that it is supposed to rain all weekend, which sucks for the event itself, but it also kind of sucks to bring things into the hotel because these are historic hotel buildings where like they don't have a parking garage, they don't even have an elevator, like you have to park half a block away, around the corner, etc., cart all your things in, and then bring it up a very, very tall and steep Victorian staircase that's probably at least a good 20 feet tall. So it's a lot to bring everything up. So ideally you do kind of want to minimize trips, which makes suitcases nice, but obviously things like hats and stuff, they're not gonna fit in the suitcases. So that's the nice thing about this, especially with 1830s that I'm bringing. I can like put each hat in a garbage bag and kind of, you know, staple those together or tie those together and be able to just like hoist them all up at once, ideally without damaging any feathers. So you do have to be careful a little bit with that, but at least that protects them from the rain. For the dresses themselves, I again plan to put them in waterproof garment bags, particularly the silk ones, and that will mean that A, I can do any pressing that I need here at home, and B, they won't get wet, because even a suitcase can get wet and you can get things wet through your suitcase. So all of the undergarments and everything, those are gonna go in the suitcases. Smaller accessories are gonna go in the suitcases. And again, as I put them in the suitcase, there's a suitcase behind me here, I don't know if you can see it, but as I put them in, I cross them off my checklist because you don't want to forget anything. So I'm gonna go start doing that right now. By the way, I will link the garment bags that I use down below. I actually use them for storage as well because way back when I did a video where I showed you how I stored all my costumes, which I'll also link below. It's still the same as it was then, but I actually built a closet in my garage, a walk-in closet. So anything that is not silk or fur or wool goes out there in garment bags. So yeah, I'll link those garment bags that I use down below. There's a really, really long gown length that I really like, but is not waterproof. And then there is a shorter length that is waterproof. One of the last things that I'm doing as I'm packing everything up is pressing things that need pressing. Again, this is only because I'm driving and I can put them kind of loosely into garment bags. But as you can see, these pleats need a little help. To be honest, I don't even know if I'm going to be wearing this, but if I am, it's going to be tomorrow. The other thing that I have to check with items that are stored in my garage is that the friction pen has not come back. Now, friction pen, if you're not aware of this, friction pen will actually come back if it's not washed out. So although it will disappear with heat, if the garment is then worn or stored in the cold, the pink or whatever color you use comes back. So you do have to be careful and check for things that you might need to iron off again because you don't want that pink pen right in the middle of your skirt. So I'm actually here in Port Townsend at this point at the Victorian Festival, and one thing that I should have done in preparation for packing that I did not do was to actually test my hair out for this outfit, and that way I would know like which hair pieces I needed to bring. So I wound up prepping a hair piece last night as I was packing, which is what I'm wearing right here. I believe it's actually a human hair piece, and I just curled it. So I set it in little like sausage curls all over, and then I kind of plopped it on top of my head, pinned the curls in place so they wouldn't wiggle all over, and combined that over with another like braided bun hairpiece, and then there is a rat underneath in here. So it all worked out okay, but because I didn't prep it ahead of time, I wound up bringing a lot of extra hair. So that is something that I definitely recommend, is always test out your hairstyles in advance in preparation for any going away event, frankly any event period, so that you know what exact hair pieces you're going to need so that you don't bring all of them like I did. So it is now obviously post-event, and I think that I mostly set myself up for success. There were a couple of things like trying on the hair ahead of time that I did not do, and a couple of things that I left off of my packing list. I think the biggest thing that I left off of my packing list that I can think of right now about a week post-event is I forgot to pack business cards. So obviously I should have packed business cards. That would have been a really good idea. I had multiple occasions on which I could have handed them out, particularly because a lot of people in Port Townsend are actually not aware of the Victorian Festival going on. And so I think that handing out a business card, whether that's to like to my channel right here to join you all, or whether that is, you know, for like the Puget Sound Historical Costumers Guild, I think that all of that would have been a good idea so that people could learn where they could get more involved in historical costuming in general. So that would have been good. I think pretty much everything else though I did remember, which I'm quite proud of myself for. I do really think that making that super involved list and just going piece by piece, layer by layer, I think that that is so important to your prep. One other prep sort of thing that I did once I got there, which I forgot to tell you guys about as I was doing it, was one of my bonnets. I forgot that as I was storing it, I think it was actually because I brought it to costume college a couple years ago, and bringing it back from costume college, I took the feathers off of it and the feathers were stored separately. So that was one of my prep items once I got there, was to re-sew those feathers back on. I just did it for like 3 minutes the night before I wore it, but it is easier to transport bonnets a lot of times without feathers attached and just to whip them on when you get there. The other hat, on the other hand, had its feathers attached and it did fine. In fact, even through wind and the weather, most of my feathers, I think, survived. Hopefully. It's something that I'll have to kind of take stock of before my next costume event, for example. Also, in hindsight, I'm glad that I did pack that additional costume because I did wear it, as you might have seen in my Port Townsend Victorian Festival video, which if you haven't seen that video, I will link that up above right here. But yeah, that actually came in quite handy and I did wear that. And I think that I really didn't have any issues with any of my costumes. Everything went over quite swimmingly, though I probably should have tried on the 1830s dress at home because it had been a while since I wore it, but it did fit. I knew that it would fit. It just somehow seemed way shorter than I remembered it. Now, on the other hand, I had multiple friends at this festival who honestly were not having the most fun time because they made mistakes for one reason or another that caused them to like feel ill or feel tired or feel unprepared. And that has actually inspired me to make an additional video kind of on the same subject of how to survive a multi-day costume event, whether that is something like this, a multi-day historical festival, or whether that is like a multi-day con. Honestly, they work kind of the same way. So that video will be coming out very soon, so make sure that you are subscribed and that you have that little notification bell on so that you know when that video will be live. I hope to have that out in the next couple of weeks as a bonus Saturday video. But anyway, if you did like this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And again, make sure that you are subscribed. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week, usually with sewing vlogs out on Tuesdays, and then sometimes with additional costuming content out on Saturdays. But I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks or join my YouTube channel memberships right here on YouTube below the video. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Jean, Dan, and Kim. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!